Życzymy Państwu przyjemnej podróży.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the next panel dedicated to the topic of migration. And it's a very interesting aspect, actually. That is the right to culture and the freedom of its creators. The cultural rights has been seen in the realm of human rights as a Cinderella right. Nevertheless, we, as we are all here, believe that the right to culture, access to culture, the freedom of exercising culture, creating culture, belongs to the basics of not only the individual freedom, but also belongs to the basics of the liberal democracy. And this is the thing that enhances, ensures the cohesive societies. Today with us are experts and colleagues who practice. We are still waiting for our fourth guest, colleague from China, Rabigül. I hope she will join us soon. But not to waste any minute, let me start. My name is Dominika Kasprowicz. I'm a professor at the Jagiellonian University, but also a director of the International Cultural Institution, Villa Decius, that is based in Krakow. And it is not by chance that we are here and that this panel became a part of this year's Freedom Games Congress. Why? Because Poland recently not only stood up for the challenge of the very large number of people with the forced migration coming in from Ukraine, Belarus, but also other countries. It's also because Poland, for many reasons already, and the Polish society stand out in terms of how to handle these challenging circumstances. One of the aspects that not very frequently has been in the public eye is not so necessarily a role of central government or the central institutions, but the role of cities, the role of activists, and the role of cultural creators, artists, writers, translators themselves. Poland and city of Krakow were the first, 11 years ago, to join the international network of cities of refuge, ICORN. Therefore, today with us are colleagues who, this way or another, take an active part in that initiative. But we are not going only to talk about ICORN as a case that can be interesting for the cities and cultural activists and managers, people who believe that culture and freedom of artistic expression is a really important factor. but it's also, there are also many other topics I want to squeeze into 60 minutes. Therefore, my introduction is going to be rather short, and let me take the next step and to introduce our guests. So, Khaled Harara, a colleague originally from Palestine, now in Sweden, who is not only a musician, an artist, but also a known activist, and a person who has took up the challenge to actually speak up for the rights of those who are incoming to this totally new cultural environment, and who wants to bring to the table their own experience and their own voice. Welcome, I'm very glad to have you, Khaled. The second guest is Andres Hegge, who is a former PEN Norway director and member of the board of the International Cities of Network for many years, who has this capacity and, I believe, software and hardware to explain all the peculiarities behind how to actually institutionalize, how to grow, and hopefully how to handle the current challenges when it comes to this kind of initiatives that in a sense are overshadowing or finding a way around some of the obstacles caused by bureaucracy, politics, and other challenges. Last but not least, Mr. Robert Piaskowski, a former member of the board of ICORN network, but also for many years a director of one of the biggest cultural institutions in Krakow, person known for being actively involved, engaged in pursuing the right for freedom of artistic expression, currently the director of the National Cultural Center in Poland. I want to thank you particularly, Robert, because this beautiful stage and a series of panels actually could have happened because of the support of the National Cultural Center. Okay. So we have our three guests, and let me move to the first question, which is actually a big question. The right to culture, as I said, seen as a side right, not of the primordial importance when it comes to tackling the many issues that are arising around the global and massive migration we are experiencing these days. The right to culture, access to it, and possibility to practice culture and arts in the times of war. This is such a huge topic, but I know, Khaled, that you have vast experience, personal, professional, so I believe that you can give us an intro, several sentences, your reflections on that. Is it really a side right in the times of war?
First of all, thank you so much. I guess this one working.
Perfect.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, it's a pleasure for me to be here. I have been visiting many countries and many places the last 11 years, and there is just only few places I can feel they could be a home. And I would like to say that's Poland. It could be one of these places that I can call home. Congratulations for the way that you're building your country, how the country is developing. I have been reading history, doing my homework, and when I see the impact here on how the people taking care of this country without digging too much with politics, again, I want to say congratulations, especially during these critical times. It's really hard to maintain something good, unfortunately. For you who don't know me, my name is Khaled Harara, Palestinian from Gaza City, and I have been a former guest writer of Gothenburg City, Sweden. Regarding your question, actually before I came to the stage, I was writing several points, what I'm gonna say, etc., but actually it doesn't make any sense anymore. Why? Because at this moment, my people, they are in war. And if I'm gonna speak as a person that's physically here, but mentally there with the experience that regarding culture during war times, I can tell you culture and music and art, can be a super weapon. That's the point that majority of the politicians, they don't understand. And I can give you a really simple example. Any occupation, when they take a new place or they want to make a nation obey, what they do? They start to bombard first things, cultural heritage places, ask UNESCO. Then they start to target schools, historic places, trying to wipe the history, destroy the culture and the education. Regarding the last UNESCO reports about Gaza, systematically, heritage places in Gaza City got 100% almost demolished, destroyed by the Israeli army. Where you see the same example, ISIS, when it was taken in Iraq, Syria, they start to target museums, etc., etc., etc. Another example, when a new regime, dictator regime, taken over a place, what is the first things they control? Museums, theaters, schools, press. That's how you can control a nation. Regarding culture during the war times, what the only thing can make you feel still you are a human? When blood is shedding everywhere, maybe a small song, a musical instrument can give you hope. Culture, it's more than just only a fancy activities you do it when you are in a peacetime. So, yeah, that's simply.
Thank you, Khaled. In the times of war, and I'm referring to the ongoing war in Ukraine caused by the Russian aggression, we have heard many of the Ukrainian colleagues, known artists and writers, poets, who at some point were kind of losing hope in any power of culture and arts. We have examples of colleagues who gave up their cultural practices and simply started to fight. What would you tell them? Is there anything you can tell them?
Yeah, absolutely I can. Let's imagine culture as a factory. Let's say cars factory. In peacetime, you're making sport cars. But during war times, you start to make a different types of cars can fit to the circumstances. Maybe it's not the culture itself, it's the cultural practices. For me, if I'm gonna focus on culture and education during a wartime, I start to focus in education and cultural expression for children as a mental relief so they can handle for the civilian. So sometimes we need to start to understand how we can transform our cultural activities during the wartime so they can fit. Anyone telling you it's just only about fighting, like you can see it clean and clear in refugee camps around the world. You give the refugees water, food, medicine, but mentally they are destroyed. And if you kill someone mentally, it's game over, no matter if you feed them. So culture and music saved my life during the war times. I survived the 3 wars. And today, because of the culture, I'm one of these lucky few, even if I'm feeling guilty that I'm lucky. And I'm not there in Gaza City right now, and I'm sitting here. Culture saved my life. So culture, it's much way more than just only, again, luxurious activities. You do it in peacetime. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Khaled, and welcome.
I'm sorry, I went to the wrong place.
Now I think it works. We can switch.
Sorry, I'm late. I went to the wrong place.
No, that's okay. You got just in time for a question. Rabigül,
Yes.
a colleague from China that has recently came to Poland, a person that is known for her interest in cultural rights and the right to language and autochthonic culture, a person that so bravely stands up to protect and to look after those who are not sharing the majority or majoritarian culture and majoritarian view on practicing culture. The first question I was about to ask you was about your overview, your reflection on the sense and essence, a reason for the right of culture in the political, societal environment that is not so friendly to the minority voices.
Yes. Hello, I'm Rabigül. And
Yes, sure. I was thinking about if you could give us an insight into the situation in China and the topics you are covering in your everyday research, because Rabigül is also a scholar.
Actually, in these years, I'm trying to be voice of millions of voiceless in China, Eastern Turkestan, but Chinese government call it Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. And I'm very glad to be here. Actually, as a human, we all have a right to access our own culture and learn our native language. But some non-liberal country, it's impossible. For example, in China. And actually, I'm from China, but I'm not Chinese. I'm from Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, and this is a northwestern place of China. And this land occupied by Chinese government, 1949. Maybe you all hear about or knowing about Uyghur genocide, and the Chinese government making a genocide in this place since 2016. And since 2016, millions of Uyghurs sent to the concentration camps and prison. After the Holocaust, people promised that it's never again. But this genocide just now happening again in my homeland, East Turkestan. And I'm also lucky one because I'm here. I can speak free for my people. I can advocate my people's right. It's very hard to continue keeping and continue our culture and native language in our homeland, because from 2016, hundreds of thousands of Uyghur intellectuals and academics also were sent to the camps, and the Uyghur language and the Uyghur culture already removed from education. For that reason, it's impossible to continue our culture or our language, keep alive in our homeland. So that it's a small group of Uyghurs in diaspora, we're trying to continue our language and our culture alive. From 2020, a small group of Uyghur volunteers, including me, we set up online Uyghur native language school, and we are teaching Uyghur children who was born and raised up on diaspora. We just trying to teach them Uyghur language, Uyghur culture, and we just set up our class on the weekend. Before coming here, I finished my first class for weekend, and it's very hard to being part of the community that suffered genocide, but we're trying our best to do it.
Thank you very much.
I just added to one point. Actually, when we start to set up Uyghur online school, the book named of Flying University inspired of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabigül. Thank you for agreeing to join us in spite of your just a few months long stay in Poland. You are in the process of accommodation. But there is one thing I think we should be very clear about. I have this prevalent feeling that here in Poland, because of our history, not only because of the recent experiences we have, with an ongoing war in Ukraine, but also because of our past. We can be and we are unprecedentedly empathetic towards those who had to leave their countries, towards those intellectuals, experts, artists, who have to flee and who have to keep working or want to keep working on exile. I hope you will find a new home here and that we will learn soon more about the situation of Uyghur minority and that you will find the tools around here to make the situation at least a little bit better. So thank you very much for coming over and finding us here on the second floor eventually. As you hear, those are the topics and those are people and testimonies that are so very heavy, loaded with emotions and loaded with content. Definitively, we are not going to unpack all of the topics and all of the subjects. But I really would like to move forward as the time passes by and to challenge a bit this short but very powerful insights from the section of war, the places where the war is happening or the genocide is happening, with the safe and peaceful Europe. So-called liberal democracies and the safe haven for many people. Is it also pinkish and full of unicorns? We know that it isn't. I would like to ask our colleague Robert Piaskowski about the liberal democracies and actually what's behind the scenes when it comes to the right to culture and the challenges that are posed in front of those who really want to exercise their freedom of artistic expression.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here. Firstly, before I will answer this question, I will just explain why we are here, National Center of Culture, promoting and supporting the conversation about the authoritarian repressions and freedom of speech in different countries, what is the role of International Cities of Refuge Network, and particularly what is the role of national agencies such as National Center of Culture. And the idea of this panel came to me in Copenhagen early this year during the General Assembly of ICORN, where a Norway Art Council just introduced and hosted similar panel presenting also very interesting data about the rise of the authoritarian tendencies and trends in Europe and worldwide. And to me, it was quite shocking to see the global trends presented by Dr. Marianne Nord from Göteborg University, showing that democracy for the average person in the world is back to 1985. Since 2009, almost 15 years in a row, the share of the world's population living in the autocratizing countries has overshadowed the share living in democratizing countries. It means that 71% of the global population, world population, lives in autocracies. And of course, she presented also different indicators declining in all of the states, and we experienced this declining indicators in Poland over the last 8 years. Such indicators like rule of law or fair elections or equal protection or direct vote, freedom of associations, local elections, regional elections, elected officials, freedom of expression. And in all of the states, including Western democracies, all of those indicators are declining. So that was a little bit shocking to me, and when we compare those indicators to what happened in Poland over the last 8 years, we see same elements like concentration of the media in the state hands. We still have elections, but they are not completely fair. I mean, in many Western countries, freedom of universities and auto-censorship. This is something we experienced as well. And the director of Norwegian Art Council, she said, we are looking to Poland because we want to understand what happened in the country, member of the European Union, relatively successful in its transformation. And this is actually, it was the inspiration to our panel today, especially that we experience everywhere in Europe the rise of populist and Eurosceptic movements, and they are threatening to undermine the very foundation of democracy. As you said, Dominika, social cohesion, but also European unity. And to effectively counter these growing challenges, it is imperative that we rethink our approach to cultural policy. And here is the role of National Center of Culture also, how to create, how to shape, how to connect, how to create platforms and public NGO partnership in promoting inclusion, dismantle the harmful narratives that fuel populism, and also support such beautiful ideas I was witnessing and also contributing to the growth of this beautiful idea in recent years, such as ICORN, so the idea of shelter cities, cities providing shelter to prosecuted artists or writers.
Thank you very much, Robert. Indeed, it was a speech in Copenhagen we both listened to that made it very clear and based in research, empirical data, aggregated data, showing that we are at the verge of a real trouble when it comes to the very basic aspect of freedom, the freedom of artistic expression, and also when it comes to the freedom of the free speech and journalism and media were particularly important element of this not very promising overview of the future of Europe as such. So we've been struggling with challenges coming from outside. We've been struggling with the challenges coming from indoor, from inside. I want to touch upon what you have said about the role of the national agencies. You have been appointed the director of this very important institution very recently, but I believe by now you have a very clear vision of what actually can be done. What's the plan? What's the plan of the game when it comes to securing this very, let's say, baseline of pluralism of cultural expression and freedom of mind, actually?
I think that this tension between cultural institution and political power in many states, in Poland, was a fact as well. Now we need to understand what is the role of the strong and independent institutions, not only in Poland. That was one of the key messages of Timothy Snyder in his famous text about authoritarianism in 21st century. So we need to keep foster strong, independent and resilient institutions. And this is how we work now, introducing such values and ideas into the capacity building programs, because the role of National Center is both influence the development of cultural nets and networks and cultural institutions aside big towns, in the borderlines, in small towns, and giving cultural workers, professionals, but also educators and activists power, strength, but also specific knowledge, how to deal with different issues, how to deal with disinformation, how to counter disinformation. And we are now searching and observing programs established in some of the countries. For example, Finland. In Finland, they launched comprehensive media literacy programs that are implemented through cultural institutions and school. And these programs teach citizens, particularly young people, how to critically evaluate information and identify false narratives. So cultural institutions such as museums, theaters, libraries, they play a role by creating exhibitions, performances. They encourage public debate and critical reflection. In France, in response to the rise of populist and extremist rhetoric, France has introduced policies that support public media and cultural organization in producing content that is fact-checked and rooted in democratic values. Initiatives like l'éducation aux médias et l'information aim to teach media literacy across all levels of education with the help of cultural institutions that organize workshops and exhibition on the topic. And the German experience also. Germany has implemented the Kultur macht stark program, which focuses on using culture as a way to engage marginalized communities and reduce the vulnerability to populist messages by promoting diverse cultural narratives and fostering intercultural dialogue. And this program encourages integration and social cohesion. So those examples are very inspiring to me, especially now, especially that we now, of course, we are in the middle of the shift. We are working on the new policies, but National Center of Culture has all those. First of all, the very dense network of 15,000 institutions in Poland. 5,500 libraries, almost 5,000 cultural centers, and then NGO, etc. So introducing such a program, Art and Democracy program, is my ambition and great need, urgent need. And we speak about that with different national institutions, with Ministry of Culture, and we will be ready to work and to announce some details in upcoming months. We work closer with Norway now. In November, during the Open Eyes Economy Summit, we will host a director of the Norwegian Art Council and experts on such a program, Art and Democracy, and we will learn how it works, how we can go forward, how we can share some expertises and then contribute to our neighbor countries, because we have much duties in regards to Slovakia or Hungary, how to, let's say, protect the rest of the democratic courage in those states.
I think we'll get to our neighboring countries, as I see also with us colleagues from neighboring countries, cultural institutions and NGO sector sitting in audience. But to get to another topic I really wanted to touch upon, because we have heard a little about the personal experience coming from the times of war. We have an insight from the ongoing, massive and so moving, for many reasons, shocking also, process that many people would not call genocide, but it's actually one silent genocide, one of many that actually are ongoing these days. We saw, or we heard, an interesting approach from the central agency from the country that actually became a cultural battleground in the past few years, where, like, Poland, the culture and artists became weaponized in the political battle. So is the power of cities and towns and maybe villages a response to some of the challenges we heard about so far? At least this is, I feel, was an idea behind the ICORN network at the start. Anders. Thank you.
Yes, it's right. I'll return to that in a moment. But first, let me say it's very humbling to sit here with Rabigül and Khaled and listen to their stories of two ongoing genocides. But it is also a very, very good example on what the ICORN thought is meant to be, namely not only trying to save an individual, but save a voice which can be upheld in a new surrounding. And that's when we come to the idea of the cities, because it's a fact that even though state institutions, and you're doing your best, I know that, they will always be a part of a too large entity. But the city, as such, provides a cultural scene and a political entity that can feel devoted, can feel engaged in the cultural project that you two, for instance, are engaged in. And they are connected much closer to the audience which you'll meet. And the idea behind ICORN, when it was established, it actually was established 2 times, one in '94 and then in its previous state in 2006, was exactly that, to rely, because all the refugee questions were in Europe left to nations, to states. And that is, it's okay, but it doesn't deal with what kind of, the special kind of obligations that comes with authors or scholars or artists or even dancers who main task is to meet an audience. So it should, both part gains a lot from this. The city gains, or as you said, it could also be a village. And the artist will be connected more directly with their audience and hopefully be given a voice that can inflict on the new place they come to, because it's very important that it's not like kind of a service we give to them. It's the other way around. We gain not only in diversity, but in cultural learnings. Here, for instance, now, when we listen to you talk, that is kind of the core idea of ICORN. And the other part is that we accept, you called cultural rights the Cinderella of human rights. I think that was unintentionally, or maybe intentionally, a very good way of describing it, because let's not forget Cinderella, she had a tough time, but she is, in fact, the princess, the only real princess. And that is why we say in ICORN, or the idea is we're saving a voice, not only a person.
For those who are not familiar with the concept of ICORN, let me briefly say that this is a network, a growing network of cities working together, over 80 cities already, actually all around the world.
I think we can say 85 today.
Exactly, perfect. Yeah, that's a good day for the network. 85 cities from almost all around the world. I think one continent is still missing. But anyways, the network that gathers big cities, but also middle-sized cities and towns, mostly in Europe. The cities become a driving force of the process.
Okay.
We still have 20 minutes. Okay, the network that's main goal is to open up the doors of the local communities to the artists, writers, translators, visual artists who has a forced migration background, who came over to Europe through the application process, through the selection process, and who become or are supposed to become an important voice, not only delivering the message from outside, but also a voice that would give us much deeper insight into the current state of arts of our communities and Europe as such. So by now, after this many years of ICORN existence, there is over 200 alumni, former fellow artists circulating in Europe. There is also a very long waiting list of those who are searching for help and the capability to continue their artistic, literary endeavor in much friendly or more friendly circumstances. And to be very frank, of course, ICORN, International Cities of Network, International Cities of Refuge Network, is not only of such initiatives. There are also other focusing on scholars, focusing on visual artists, focusing on journalists. But I believe that by now, ICORN became quite a powerful voice, an advisory voice when it comes to the new model and the role of cities in Europe.
It's a very important part of it, because especially regarding this conference, where the focus is of the cities, that we offer a network of cities who can cooperate, not only to find best practice, but that too, of course, but also to exchange ideas about how does cultural work with individual artists work out. How do we do it? How do we, and what are the implications of it? And it hopefully also lays the ground for a network between the artists. Is this falling out? Yes, it is. So you didn't hear anything of that? Anyone that works now?
Yes, this one works.
And I'm sure that they experience when they come to Europe that everything works very well in Europe, like technique and such things. Regarding the microphones, I mean. Yeah, okay. But the network thing, and that it is on city level, is an important thing of this. It is also because cities does not work normally ideological. They work concrete, and they have to make things work. You can't cut it down to politics. You have this artist in a city working together with a library. It's very, you have to be pragmatic about it. And the question about pragmatism is much more visible on city level.
Raz, dwa, trzy. Oh, we won't make it happen. Okay, as to the city, I know that this is a question that was not on the list, but Robert, I think you won't see it as a big challenge. I ask you about the role of the very particular city, and I know that we are in a beautiful city of Łódź and very close to the beautiful city of Warsaw, but let's get down south to Krakow, the first city in this part of Europe that actually decided to join the ICORN network and then managed and helped in developing the network through the country and through the region. So do you really feel that it makes a difference to operate and to try to assist colleagues from other places searching for safe haven or better conditions through the lens of the city?
I think that when Kraków joined the network in 2011, that was a very moving moment. That was the centennial of the birthday of Czesław Miłosz, great poet from Poland. Actually, I wanted to make some reference to what you said about the language as a homeland. I remember read on the city council room Notes on Exile by Miłosz, and the first sentence is, "My language is my homeland." That's why we need to protect languages in all of those aspects. And but this is just a little reference which came to my mind when you asked me about the beginnings. It was completely different momentum. Poland was quite pro-European, liberal. That was so easy to vote, such access to ICORN in 2011, no voices against, everyone was pro, and it was completely different. Then everything has changed. I even remember solidarity in little town of Zakopane for one of our Egyptian writer in residence. So it was just before this refugee phobia and this populism narratives against migration in Poland and in Europe. But it's important to say that the idea of shelter cities came from Salman Rushdie. When you know Salman Rushdie case, you know how big price you can pay when you write books, first of all. From the other hand, his books, Joseph Anton, the title is Joseph Anton, his biography, tells the story actually how states were dancing together to do not protect him as a very popular figure, and this fatwa by Khomeini changed completely the landscape of free literature, cinema, and so on in different states. So it's and the city of London and some other cities provided the shelter against the state policy sometimes. And I think it's a case of many stories here in a network of ICORN towns. But I believe that we in Poland, we are already cities of ICORN in Katowice, Wrocław, city of Gdańsk, recently Warsaw. We know that Lublin would like to join. We encourage city of Łódź because it was always city of refugees, and it was always shelter city for many minorities. But I can imagine that many great places in borderlines, smaller town, like in Norway, for example, they could be also shelters for writers, artists, journalists, bloggers, intellectuals, thinkers. And we see also different programs and residential programs, especially on the east side, for example, in Krasnogróda, in Pogranicze, Krzysztof Czyżewski place, there is many shelters, opportunities, or Villa Decius is a great place with such a legacy of residences, not only ICORN, But when you look on the list of, for example, Ukrainian writers over the last 3 decades, there is more than 100 names, and they are the most important names of the literature and journalism in this country. So I think we have all duties and something to promote, and this network is open, or of course not to anyone, because it should not be used as a political marketing driver. Cities joining the network, they should be reliable, credible, and it is not like that, let's pay the membership fee and let's join. No, this is the strong conversation in ICORN board. There is a time of waiting, of proving. So this is how the network wants to be very far from politics, from current trends, from political marketing, and really providing shelters based on capacities, on knowledge, and really shelter concept.
Yes. To add to that, it's true that it's kind of a vetting of cities that could join, like there is a vetting of candidates, because I mean there is hundreds and thousands of people who could come into this system, and as you said, we have 300 that's in it, so it's really a drop in the ocean. But it's an important drop, because the artist makes, when it drops into the ocean, it makes rings in the water, which is of importance. But to the concept of cities, it is a sad fact in Europe today that too many states are in a state of exchange. They're changing. They are changing not to the better. We have to rely on the cities. And it's also a sad fact all over the world that we cannot rely on politicians. We have to rely on artists. And the concept is to connect these two parts because, not to sound too pessimistic, but it's the only hope we have.
Khaled, I see you. I will just pass the only microphone to you in a second, because the time is running and I really want to give a floor to the audience at the end. So the very last question, and please be as brief as possible answering it, when it comes to the challenges, because there are a few challenges already that all of you have mentioned, and I would love to hear from you, Khaled, because you have your personal story that we know about, but you are also in a system long enough so you can see what is working and what actually requires our attention.
Thank you so much. Oof. Now it's the topic is getting more and more complicated, and absolutely you cannot cover it in 1 hour, and I'm sure many people here even confused about the cities and this stuff. Dear friends here, check ICORN on the internet and you're going to understand what the hell we're talking about, which is actually, it's to make it short, without ICORN, I don't think I had the chance to be even here beside culture. ICORN saved my life as an artist. So everything said here, it's amazing, it's necessary, all of us, we are understanding the challenge. I would like to also add that the ICORN guests, they represent early warning sign for you, dear friends who are living here. Actually, politicians, they didn't change by surprise. Like, good morning, right wing is here. What's up? No, it doesn't work like that. 2 wars right now, they are changing the face of Earth, fostering the new world order, unfortunately. Accept it or deny it, we are in the middle of a shift, like you said, sir. So if we're gonna start to be diplomatic here, and just only not to go to the bottom of the real issue, unfortunately soon we're gonna lose our jobs. Anyway, or already maybe, or our lives, absolutely. All the fancy work, that we talk about, actually, yes, it is fancy. All the, like, describing all these democracy mechanism, etc. And why I'm saying that, because kids in the street in many places, they don't even understand that. Now we are in a time where polarization, it's on the top peak. We are sitting here, yes, ladies and gentlemen, but there is another generation outside, the TikTok generation, the Facebook generation, or they are not even here. There they are controlled. And unfortunately, we are the one who made the mistake by not taking a stand for hypocrisy sometimes. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't fight just only the crime, we fight the criminal. That's mean innocent people dying everywhere. I was telling you, Dominika, we are not even equal in death. I don't know how much I should be clear. But what I say, we need a new strategy as soon as possible, because now we still have some power. Sooner or later, all the initiatives, which is great when you mention them, politicians change. Do you think any of these initiatives going to survive? Like all these activities, if a new government came, many of these activities going to be... And also, we are not the good people, and there is the bad people. Here it's democracy. There is no democracy on the other side. We need to start to evaluate how we see things. I wish if I have more time, but yeah, not sure. Maybe with the question, we can explain more.
Yes, I can only add to that applause, and I won't take any more time now. I thought I was the pessimist here, but I've been over-pessimistic.
I think that we have this duty to deconstruct populist narratives through cultural inclusion. And yes, populism thrives on exclusionary narratives that polarize society. This is the role of institutions, of culture. This is the role of everyone. This is the role of writers. This is the role of civic citizenship, engaged citizens. And it should not be strategy top-down. It is always bottom-up. And I know that I'm representing national agency, state agency, but the idea is to decentralize policies, to bring them to the level of the regions where the strategies or programs are closer to the needs of inhabitants, neighbors. But I'm not so pessimistic, because we see also other trends, and Poland is a case. We can stop the race of populism and authoritarian movements. We can learn from the situation what happened in Poland last 8 years, and we can work hard to do not create exclusive elite culture, but really go to the countryside to speak to people and working on the capacity building, and people, they are enough brave to stay there and to change the minds. And also testimonies made by you, I'm really overwhelmed and deeply moved by your testimonies, because you are the real voices. And I dream, or I wish that disciples, students, or people in small towns, they could also listen to such voices directly, because your story is a real story.
Thank you very much, Robert. Colleagues, I'm referring to our audience. Do you have any questions or comments? We have 2 minutes left, but you know, we can be concise, more concise than so far. Do we have any comments or questions? There were many topics, loads of content. There's always an option to continue behind scenes over a coffee which I heard in Poland is much better than in Sweden. Sorry to all Swedish friends. Not so bad. Okay, there was one more question on the list. I think we are not going to answer it, but it has been touched upon by a few of you about the model of cultural policy, about the trends or the patterns of change that you feel would be worth following. Maybe any of you would like to add to that?
I've been listening to many politicians and many other people, but yeah, thank you so much. You like some pressure made it like to target what we need to do. We work from down to top. It's about protecting our right of freedom of speech. It's not a goal, ladies and gentlemen. It's like a sport. You need always to keep your axe sharp all the time. And to do that, always you need to focus from down to the top. Politicians, they don't decide for you what to eat, what to drink. I hope you're going to be ready and willing to lose your job for your freedom of speech. It's really easy to talk about freedom of speech, but it's need really big sacrifice. Ask someone came from Middle East. Why you need to even ask someone from Middle East? Ask your fathers and your grandfathers. You wasn't far away from war, ladies and gentlemen. You Polish people, you know what is the real meaning of war. So keep it up, you're doing good. And I hope this experience from here can be shared with others. And we need to talk about that. Together we are stronger. So let's see how we can translate our talks to action. Yeah.
And as our time is up, thank you very much to the colleagues, to Rabigül, to Khaled, and to Anders and Robert for joining us for the panel and touching upon all the set of tough questions, providing also answers. I'm very glad that you've been with us, and I hope and wish you a great stay in the forthcoming 2 days for the Freedom Games. Thank you.
Jedzą kanapki z kawiorem.
Nadzwyczajna kasa.
Obrażanie dziennikarz telewizji polskiej.
Chodzi o działania polityczne.
Przygotowanie ofiar dla pedofilów.
Für Deutschland!
TVP Info. Włącz się na nowo.
Radość, nadzieja, życie, wyzwanie, pasja, pamięć, zaufanie, pokój, jedność. Słowa tworzą świat. Polskie Radio. Źródło wiarygodnych informacji.
Plany biznesowe powstają z marzeń. Dlatego nie ma dwóch takich samych firm. Jedni chcą działać na całym świecie. Innym cały świat mieści się w dłoni. Sukces biznesu to nie tylko jego wielkość, ale też szczęście, jakie przynosi ludziom. PKO Bank Polski.
Uwielbiam szycie w sieci. Wczoraj podszyłem się pod wnuczka, wieczorem uszyłem intrygę na apce randkowej, a dziś planuję grubymi nićmi szyte oszustwo z promocją. Tak się szyje.
Na oszustów są sposoby. Zapoznaj się z poradami ekspertów na niedajsiepodszyć.pl.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Polskie Radio.
Jedynka.
Rodzina spółek Pelion to 12 tysięcy osób pracujących w ponad 300 spółkach w Polsce, Szwecji, Wielkiej Brytanii i na Litwie. Jesteśmy liderem w branży ochrony zdrowia. Od 1990 roku dbamy o długość i jakość życia. Pracować z nami możesz w jednym z 7 obszarów.
Dziś Nowy Jork, jutro Londyn. Za chwilę Paryż, Warszawa, Berlin. Na całym świecie kultura pulsuje rytmem. Wystarczy tylko włączyć dwójkę. Dwójka, Polskie Radio. Jesteś na miejscu.
Zapraszamy do Trójki. Od nowa.
Trójka. Program Trzeci Polskiego Radia.
Czy wytrzymasz klockowe tortury? Ze stoickim spokojem. Czy w twardych negocjacjach zachowasz zimną krew? Czy poddasz się dobrowolnej eksmisji ze swojego łóżka? Brawo! Test na obecność serca zaliczony. To znaczy, że ty też możesz być rodzicem zastępczym. Dowiedz się jak na testserca.pl.